Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes, and thank you for joining us, whether you're here live or watching on the replay. It is a blessing to have you. Thank you so much for being here. And Mushtaq, do you want to do the
Yeah.
spiel?
So, guys, um, we have a small request for you from us. But first, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the videos on YouTube. And if you wouldn't mind, take a moment and hit the like button because the YouTube algorithm is brutal right now. And if we don't get enough interaction, we don't get seen. And to that end, we would be incredibly grateful if you left us a comment, and we'll try and answer them as we can. So feel free to hit the like button and hit the comment. You can even hit that bell and see if it actually rings. But if you hit the bell, you'll get notified when we put new videos up. So that's fun too. And yeah, that's it. If you want to interact with us more, there is our Facebook group. Links are down below. If you need to contact us, there is our email address for being contacted. And that's about it.
Yep, we've got donation links as well for people who would like to support our work in that realm as well. We certainly appreciate that. And given that we are all going through a very weird time, many places all over the world, it would be very beneficial to us so that we can continue to support everyone who turns to this community for a sense of camaraderie and for learning and for support. So thank you very much in advance for your help.
Yeah.
All right, without further ado, we have a topic tonight that I think
Oh
could be
boy,
a
do we
lot
have
of
a
fun.
topic tonight.
The topic this evening, well, the way we titled it this evening is kind of fun. We said, "Are you sleeping? The caravan has departed. Understanding the place of Legominisms in the work." And you'll understand why we gave this title and its poetic roots as we get into the topic at hand. And tonight is a bit of a two-parter. So we've got some historical threads to lay out and some traditions to outline. And then in the second half, we are going to get into more of the not just the philosophical stuff, but the passionate stuff, the poetic stuff, the felt stuff.
And we're going to deconstruct the legominism.
Yes.
The legominism that we are going to use is a poem by Yunus Emre. And we're fortunate to have Mert here because he can read the poem to us in Turkish. Uh, you didn't know you were going to have to work when you signed in tonight, did you? But I'll throw the Turkish version up on the screen, and there we go. It's best when
Yes.
heard in Turkish. It's actually best when it's sung as an ilahi, but uh, Noor didn't have time to learn it.
Give it time. Another day. Another
Yes.
day.
Teşekkürler.
What's that, Chris? You cut out a bit.
Oh yeah, I was just saying teşekkürler. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Are you learning Turkish, Chris?
I just had to learn a few words when I visited a few years back.
Ah,
Yeah, a good practice.
it is. Everybody should learn Turkish.
Thanks, Chris. Mm.
So, what the heck is a legominism? That's a weird word, legominism. It was invented by Gurdjieff, as far as I know. And I don't know how he derived it. My sense in Latin, lego is a verb basically to read or to collect, which kind of relates to what it is. And it has nothing to do with the little plastic blocks that come from Denmark. Or maybe it does. So, what is a legominism? It is an intentional recording of knowledge, but not necessarily recorded in the standard way of writing it in a book, because it's designed to be preserved unchanged over millennia, even through catastrophic periods of social unrest, civilizational upheavals, sort of like we're having now. A legominism can transmit the most important sacred truths from one generation to another without distortion. That's what we want, without distortion. And that is if you know how to read the legominism. They're not ordinary records, but they require a certain level of being or inner development to understand fully. And without this level of development, they might just seem like a simple folk song or look like a really interesting sculpture, or who knows. And most people who observe it will fail to grasp the meaning. Legominisms, according to the tradition, are developed by initiated beings, those with an advanced inner understanding. And the process of creating them involves a unique blending of form and meaning. It can take the shape of myths, of ritual, architectural structures, dances like the Gurdjieff movement or some of the dances that the Alevis do, or the turn of the Mevlevis. Uh, and they encode the knowledge not just symbolically, but at surface symbolically. And often the creation of these legominisms are a group effort, not just one individual, but many can uh, add to the specific capacities of the symbolic creation. And the knowledge is hidden in the form somehow, so that only those who have undergone the proper inner work are able to read it. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, do we have any questions so far? I know a bunch of you have heard this term before, but if you have anything that comes to mind that might be important to ask for other people to understand, that might be a way to help us out.
Just a very trivial point. I've always thought of it as legominism. Is there any reason why for one pronunciation or another?
Yeah, you have a funny accent.
I've never heard it spoken either way aside from Mushtaq saying it.
Yeah, when I have heard Mr. Bennett say it. He says it more like you do. But then he has a funny accent, or he had a funny accent, being
So,
one of them Britishers.
I think I might take his pronunciation as more authoritative.
Yeah, actually, probably the most authoritative pronunciation would be in a heavy Russian accent.
Of course,
Bad Russian accent.
so with that said,
we can move on.
we move on. Do you have any other question? All right. I guess we're good to go.
Anybody else? So the thing about a legominism is that they're not passive. Some people have this idea you stand in front of a great painting and it changes you just by standing in front of it. Maybe if you're lucky, probably not. What they are is they they're tools for awakening, and you have to use the tool actively. And the transmission of the tool is through symbolic means, through oral means. Sometimes they're embedded in stories, epic poems, dances, even sacred architecture. Um, some, but not all, of the Nasruddin stories act as legominisms. You have epic poems. One that always comes to mind is The Conference of the Birds by Attar, which in Farsi is an incredibly beautiful poem, as well as being an incredibly cool story. And it is designed, if you know how to listen to it, it is designed to impart to you certain information. Um, Another example in architecture is the Great Mosque of Cordoba, which um, embodies uh, certain hidden teachings, let's say. And one could argue that the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, the great cathedral built by Gaudí, could be a legominism. And my experience of it was, hell yeah, there was so much meaning baked into that architecture, I couldn't process it all. But that's just me. I might have been hallucinating. Who knows?
Any other examples folks can think of or they've experienced? Mm.
Okay. Many years ago, I read Maurice Nicol's books. And one of the things I remember is that and it's basically the only thing I remember, is that he talked about the fact that in reading the scriptures, and in particular, I remember when he was talking about the Old Testament, um, he was saying and illustrating that there was another level of meaning in them for people who understood, let's say, to oversimplify, Gurdjieff's system. Um,
Yeah, there's no doubt. And see, the thing is, part of Gurdjieff's system was a set of tools that you could use to translate things like that. The enneagram being the central one, and we're actually going to use the enneagram later this evening to help understand a legominism. And I haven't seen anybody use it in the Torah or the books of the prophets, but I have seen Mr. Bennett again use it in the Lord's Prayer, putting the Enneagram on the Lord's Prayer and putting
Yeah.
the Enneagram on the Beatitudes. And it gives you a whole new sense when you begin to look at the lines and flow of it underneath the hood of the thing, as it were.
Yep. And we've done it with verses from the Quran as well.
Oh, yeah.
And Mustaqim is good at that. He's done that.
So the requirements that you need for interpreting or understanding a legominism, they can only be understood by those who have developed a corresponding level of being. That is to say, inner qualities such as emotional sensitivity, conscious attention, and objective reasoning, which is to say most people can't understand legominisms, he said cynically. And they are above all else a method of preserving sacred science. Uh, Gurdjieff basically hinted, or more than hinted, that in previous times, legominisms were the primary means of transmitting higher knowledge. And we see this. So in ancient Sumer, they had these things called me, which are spelled M-E. And a me is a legominism. And if you wanted to learn something, you would go to the temple that had possession of that me. So if you wanted to learn beer making, which was very important in ancient Sumer, you would go to, maybe the temple of Inanna, and because she had a lot of me, and they would literally download the me into you. And you would not just have a recipe for beer making, you would know how to make beer. And the sense is that that culture ran on transmission through legominism.
So slightly different from the way people talk about downloading sacred wisdom today in like new agey circles. This is a it's classical in the classical sense of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there were some pretty wacky May, but we don't need to go into that now. But just know that this is something that has been known and used for thousands of years.
So, quick question. So
Yes,
that would be so this downloading that you're talking about, that would be different from an apprenticeship.
yes, it would be different from an apprenticeship.
Okay.
the way that they talk about it, it's as if you are a computer and they install the program in you and then you can run it. This may not be what they meant, but when I read the texts, that's what it makes me think of.
So that sounds like a technology that we don't have today.
But we do have it today. Some of us have a little bit of it.
Okay,
We're going to use a little bit of that technology later in this talk.
looking forward to it.
Yeah, just a touch of it. But in order to use the technology, you have to know how your operating system works to keep up with the computer metaphor. If you don't know that, you can't run the program. You can't install the program.
Of course.
And there's a fun book that you can read that is science fiction and has nothing to do with anything real except for little tiny areas called Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. And if you haven't read it, you should, because it's a hoot.
Yeah, I did read that many years ago.
I just finished it actually.
Then you're primed for this.
You're not gonna snow crash me, are you?
Probably not, but you may know how to make beer by the time we're done.
Magnificent.
That's the spirit.
Yeah, Gurdjieff suggested that his Beelzebub's Tales was a Legominism. It was designed to not be understood at the level of consensus reality. You had to get much, much deeper into it. History will tell us if that's the case. So I give you a little quote from that book that I have saved in my notes here. The sacred process was called Legominism, and the knowledge transmitted in this way was also called a Legominism. It was established to ensure that certain knowledge should be transmitted accurately and survive through the centuries, even through long periods of darkness and degradation. These Legominisms are composed in such a way that they could be understood only by those who had reached a certain level of being and development and was unintelligible to others. Often they were embedded in ritual, art, music, architecture, or especially constructed myths and tales. And then another short passage from the book.
I can read that if you like.
Yeah, if you would.
Happy to. And so, my boy, these legominisms were actual means for the conscious transmission of intentionally created knowledge, preserved in such a form that only those who had been specially prepared could extract their essential content. That is to say, one had to undergo a certain transformation of being before the real meaning could become accessible.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, Legominisms are not just teaching texts, even though they sometimes appear in books. Two examples that we know of very clearly are the Masnavi of Rumi.
I keep thinking of that tonight. Yes.
Yeah, and even more than that, the Divani Shamsi Tabriz.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Rumi's work, in fact.
Yeah, both of those are without a doubt Legominisms, and you can't understand them just by reading them.
No.
The understanding is
Yeah.
activated only through inner work, and we
Which is
have to
not to
remember
say you won't enjoy them.
that. Yeah.
Just that there's meat on those bones.
Did I see a hand go up recently that we completely ignored?
I was not looking, I was reading the thing. Did we have someone with a hand up?
I guess not.
No, but
Yes, Kyle,
I,
yes.
I it seems like you're kind of talking about like almost like art or creativity or great works of art that have like a second layer, a third layer of meaning that you can kind of just delve into and really pull a lot out of. Um, is that kind of
Kind of. Um,
another word that kept coming to my mind is like if something is consecrated, like is that in the same
no,
line of thinking or not?
no,
Okay.
that's just a different thing.
I
Okay.
understand why that's coming up for you though,
Yeah.
because
Uh,
there's a sense of there being as came up literally like a sacredness to these things. So yeah.
yeah. Um, my favorite example of this in modern art is some of the huge paintings done by Salvador Dali.
Mm.
And the first time I experienced this was at the Dali Museum in Florida. And we get to this one room, and there are these paintings that are huge. And when you start at the entrance to the room, the paintings look one way. When you get down off the steps into the room and like halfway to the painting, it becomes a totally different painting, completely different.
Yeah, I've been there and it does.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
It's a
then
great
when you get
museum.
close, it's a third painting. And
Yeah.
it's like, how the hell did he do that? But that's an example of uh, the mechanics of the Legominism. You have the surface painting, and then you have what's underneath it, and you have what's underneath that. I mean, if you've ever been in the presence of a Rembrandt painting, uh, I had seen Rembrandt paintings my whole life, pictures of them, photos of them, copies of them. And I could never for the life of me understand why anybody thought he was great. I mean, they were okay. The guy didn't have like weird ears or eyes in two different levels or anything, but it was like, so what? And then I went to the Legion of Honor in San Francisco and stood in front of a Rembrandt. And that experience was so different than seeing it as a photograph. Being able to see the light reflect through the layers of paint, giving it a luminous quality that I had never quite seen anything like that before. And I've seen a lot of really good art, but that was like, how the hell did he do that? You know, what is the secret to Rembrandt's layering of the oils in such a way that the light reflects off of all of these different surfaces of paint that he's built up? And it was not until I had that direct experience that I understood the genius of the man. Before then, he just did paintings of really dull Dutch guys.
So they came alive for you.
Yeah,
Mm.
and not just on a single layer. And that's what a legominism needs to do.
So we do have a question from RM.
Suck it to us.
Yeah. So how would I know I am extracting the right knowledge from the Legominism?
Um, you might not. You might need somebody to say to you, yeah, that's it, or think about this in a different way. But if you are really at the state you need to be to understand the legomenism, Say that 3 times fast. You'll know. That's my theory. It's like when I stood in front of that Rembrandt, I did not need anybody to explain to me why that painting was a masterpiece.
There's a subtlety there
Yeah,
too,
there is a subtle. In this case, it was as subtle as a brick upside the head.
in the way that it felt. But I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't like suddenly you're being hit with all these pre-written essays about what the painting is supposed to mean.
Yeah. No words could encompass the experience of standing in front of that painting and understanding what the artist was expressing.
This was not intellectual. As you said, there were revelations that were happening that took place on many levels, but it was not strictly limited to the emotional or the intellectual or even the physical, right? It was all three.
Yep.
In a weird way, that totally reminds me of the Tao that can be described as not the real Tao.
Yeah. It is actually possible. And then our housemate and I were actually discussing this yesterday and today because she made a couple of big revelations about the Tao Te Ching, and she's Chinese, speaks fluent Mandarin, and has been studying this stuff for years. And she had this realization that we probably don't actually know what he said because the language that Lao Shud was speaking might not have been the language that has been translated down through the ages. And so it becomes an interesting thought. But yeah, the Tao that can be spoken of ain't the Tao that we're talking about. So to recap here, Legominisms are encoded vessels, rituals, myths, symbols, artifacts, created to carry spiritual knowledge across long eras while appearing innocuous or mundane to the masses. They are crafted by initiated individuals or groups who deeply understand both symbolic language and inner transformation, often embedding meanings within arts, architecture, ceremonies, or text that require specific preparation to decode. And that last bit requires specific preparation to decode.
Mm.
The transmission methods are passed primarily person to person amongst initiates. It's encoded so that only those with the necessary inner readiness, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual maturity can unlock them. Some are also inscribed in artifacts or ceremonies to ensure wider, though subtler transmission. And the legominism that we're going to be working with this evening is one of those. Because I guarantee you that if you go to Turkey and you start humming the melody of this particular ilahi, 98 out of 100 people are going to know it just off the top of their head. It's old, it's popular, it is around,
Familiar,
very familiar,
very much part of the culture.
and it's an earworm. It's a big earworm.
Hearing it right now.
Yep. So legominisms anticipate societal collapse or persecution. And by embedding the knowledge outside of formal institutions, the knowledge survives where ordinary text fails, even amidst wars or cultural decay.
Yes, we've talked about how this is how we keep things preserved in the way that a library cannot, essentially. And we've lost much over the centuries in, our most treasured libraries being burned and ransacked and everything. But
Yeah,
this is
up to
how we
today.
get around that. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, when the forces of the adversary right now are doing their best to ensure that important books are removed from public libraries here in America.
Long, fatigued sigh.
Yep. But
Yes.
we don't care because we know nursery rhymes
Mhm.
that are earworms that will get inside your head and stay there no matter what, and they perpetuate themselves. This is the core of mimetic sciences, and um, the spoken legominism is essentially mimetic in nature. You all understand what that means.
Think of memes.
Yeah, don't think of what they call memes on Facebook. Memes are complexes of ideas that are designed to act like viruses. One of the first books written on memes was called The Virus of the Mind. Um, Very useful. And well-crafted memes can stick with a group for centuries, even if they don't know what it means anymore.
How it came about, why it's still there. Why are we all so connected to it? Who knows, but it's here.
Yeah, like hi diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon.
Or fairy tales. Many
Yes.
fairy tales are like this.
Anything that starts with once upon a time is liable to be loaded.
Mhm. But
Yeah,
anyway, go ahead. Yes.
yeah. I was just going to say, I remember reading Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene when it came out, and the last chapter of that was introduced the idea of memes, and I felt that it was really groundbreaking insight. Um, in it, in fact, the whole idea of the selfish gene, while it's sort of a little shaky in many ways, that whole book and his way of thinking about things was to me it was totally groundbreaking.
Yeah, for me as well, it was like, wait, what? A brilliant idea, and one that I I understood it on a very primal level in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it okay to bring in a question from RM, or do you want to
Of
finish
course,
our
no, bring
little?
it in.
Okay. She's asking, can one form of legominism lead to other forms, as in poetry into painting or vice versa?
Could. I'm pretty sure that there is no set rule for this, or if there are set rules, they're way above my pay grade.
Mm, all right. What's next?
So, other questions, thoughts?
Yeah. Any thoughts? What's on your mind, Amelia, so far?
Um, for me, I feel like the closest thing to what you're describing has been primarily through music that I've experienced.
Yeah, music is a place where you will find this. Do you have a particular example?
Um, I mean, a lot of industrial music that I like, it tends to have strong thematic narrative in how they choose their words. And I've felt like, it was telling me something that maybe even they weren't aware they were telling me when they wrote the lyrics through the song, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like Skinny Puppy is one example, but there's a lot. There's a lot of music.
Yeah. And of course, some of that's going to be generational. Um, as you will discover when you get older, a lot of the music that the kids make sense out of won't make sense to you in 40 years. But that's the nature of it. Sometimes every generation has to have their own expression on certain levels.
Thanks, Amelia. Mert. And is Osama
He went back to sleep because he was whirling all day.
there?
Oh,
That's
uh,
okay.
and he sent salams to you.
Wassalam.
Uh, yes, I was gonna ask a question.
Please do.
Is can can one make Legominisms unconsciously? Like
I
they
don't
just
think you can make them unconsciously.
you have
Uh,
to.
you can make things like memes and earworms unconsciously,
Hmm.
but an actual legominism, not so much.
Good question.
But it's a good question, yeah.
Hmm. So, RM has another question. She asks, is the human body's anatomy a form of legominism?
Um, you'd have to ask God that.
Yeah, that does seem like kind of a It's a very interesting question, RM. She says, it's the only way I passed my anatomy classes is when I learned it in layers. Dissecting layers helped. I mean, I think these are very interesting, creative ways of thinking about how legomenisms might be functioning. I'm not sure if songs meaningfully written that weren't exactly intending to be as deep as we perceive them to be, or the literal dissection of the body quite qualify as legomenisms. But again, as Mushtaq said, we can only speculate to a certain extent given our own limitations, right? Ian.
Yeah, the one thing that immediately sprang to mind with that is as above, so below.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Yes, Kyle.
It seems like these are maybe things to be experienced more than they are to be things intellectually understood or talked about. Is that correct?
Um, They need to be directly experienced, but you have to experience them with all of your centers. So the heart, the mind, your moving center. Um, I'll give you an example that may make sense to you. Some of the oldest versions of the Tai Chi form are Legominisms.
Yeah.
And that becomes obvious when you start doing it. I mean, even before the Chen form or what the Chinese government says is acceptable for being the first.
Yeah. So it takes a certain level of receptivity,
Yes.
Yes.
and that's where the work is, getting up to that point.
Yeah, and not just getting up to that point, but also opening yourself up to that extent. I mean, we often talk about, oh, it's all about, I always try to think about this in multiple ways. Like, we're also talking about self expansion and development and doing the work and everything. And flipping that coin right over, there's getting out of our own way and allowing ourselves to receive. Good thoughts. Thank you.
This is probably total tangent, but after I said as above, so below, I realized I'd never heard it said the other way around, as below, so above.
But in the original Arabic exposition of the Emerald Tablets, it starts out with that which is below is as if that which is above. So it does reverse it.
Indeed, we did
That's
a talk on that. So just as an aside.
Yeah, we have done a talk on that.
Yep.
Any idea of what the title was?
Yeah, it's I'll send you a copy of it. Of course, it won't do you any good unless you read Arabic, but the translation is not bad. And you can talk with Wael about this because I made him study this really hard. The oldest translation, the oldest account of the Emerald Tablets is in Arabic from the 8th century. There are no Greek or Latin translations of it before that. And even though it's supposed to be Egyptian or whatever, the historical record starts with that Arabic document. And there are two that are relatively close to each other in both meaning and time. But I have a copy of the oldest one.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And people, I mean, I did a talk on this, and this guy came into the comments and told me how no, it went from Atlantis to Greece and to Egypt and then around in all of these different steps to get to Europe. And I'm like, dude, you have no evidence for that. None, zero, zip. The oldest
Whereas,
document we have is this Arabic document, and we have it. It's sitting in the library. We can look at it. And there is nothing earlier, no matter what you want to believe about the Atlantean gods wanting to come down and tell us all the secrets of the universe. The oldest we have is in Arabic. Go figure.
Chris is excited. He wants to hear more. Well,
Yeah.
start by finding that video and go from there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was referring to whatever the stories that we're gonna hear for part two.
Oh,
I'm
yeah. Okay. Thanks for
yeah,
the
I'm ready to go
enthusiasm.
here. That's just me though.
So where are we headed next, Mushtaq?
That's where we're headed. I
All
have
right.
been getting the Turkish down in a way that can be read
Mm-hmm.
on the screen, I think. Yeah. And what I'm going to do first is to share the screen. Mert, can you read this?
Yes, I can.
Are you
You
familiar with this
probably
one?
already know this one, don't you?
No, no, actually.
No.
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 Legas. Okay.
Would you mind reading it for us?
I will read it with pleasure. Um, yes, I start. Nice bir uyursun uyanmaz mısın? Göçtü kervan kaldık dağlar başında. Çağrışır tellallar inanmaz mısın? Göçtü kervan kaldık dağlar başında. Emiri haç göçeli hayli zamandır. Muhammed cümleye dindir, imandır. A little bit.
Can you see the rest of it?
Delilsiz, yes, yes. Now I see it. Delilsiz gidilmez yollar yamandır. Göçtü kervan kaldık dağlar başında. Yunus sen bu dünyaya niye geldin? Gece gündüz hakkı zikretsin dilin. Evliyaya uğramaz ise yolun. Göçtü kervan kaldık dağlar başında.
Yeah. What he said. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Now, what people have done is they take that poem and they turn it into an ilahi. And that means it's sung. And they just double up the lines and add a short 2-word refrain at certain points. And it becomes beautiful earworm music. And after we put this up in the description of this, there will be links to 2 examples, both of which are outstanding in their own way as to what this
Performance.
sounds like when it's sung first by one wandering dervish and then by a group of dervishes in a big zikr ceremony. So you can hear both. And that will be in the liner notes, as it were. So what did Mert say? Let me tell you. He said, "You've slept so long. Won't you wake up? The caravan is gone. We're left on the mountainside. The criers call out, will you not believe? The caravan is gone, and we're left on the mountainside. The guide of the Hajj departed long ago. Muhammad is the faith and the way we know. One cannot walk without a guide below. The caravan is gone, and we're left on the mountainside. Yunus, why have you come into this world? Let your tongue remember God night and day. If your path avoids the saints, you lose your way. The caravan is gone, and we're left on the mountainside." So that's the poem. And that poem will definitely stick with you. So I have 2 hikmet by 2 different teachers designed to explain the poem a little bit, to move you towards a deeper understanding. Each of the hikmet is an initiation, and the last one is also built so that you can use an important tool to begin to understand it. So we're going to look at that. And I will read the first hikmet, which says, for those of you who have not been following us, hikmet means wisdom. A hikmet is a kind of poem used in the Turkic regions of the world that is not the formal poetry of the court, but the poetry of the common people.
Would it be helpful for me to read it, or would you like to?
Why don't you read the first one? I'll read the second one.
Okay. So, to catch a caravan, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a response to the one that we just heard that talks about the caravan leaving. Awaken, O soul, delay no more. Don't say the caravan is gone. There's still a trace on the path. Each step is an intention, each intention a call. Who walks the late shall not be lost at all. Stay on the mountain, bring your heart back down. Stay not on the mountain, bring your heart back down. Abandon your ego, walk silently at dawn. Yes, the caravan passed, but mercy is vast. Even the latecomer finds the gate open at last. What is yours to do? Wash your face in tears. What is yours to do? Wash your face in tears. Offer your heart to the guide. Send your tongue into remembrance. Be not weary of the road. Be a lover of the way. For even if late, the path opens if the will is from God. Ahmed says, though the caravan is gone, its trail remains. Who follows the footprints and weeps from within is heard. Mountain tops bring no union. Come down into the field, for the path to the real begins right here, right now.
A note on that last verse. It says Ahmed, but that does not mean Ahmed Yusevi because he lived about 200 years before this poem was written. But the writer of the poem either worked Ahmed Yusevi's name into it as a respect, or he was also named Ahmed. We don't know. So thoughts on that before we move to the next one?
Yeah,
Other than the terrible rhyming, but the translation program I was using insisted on doing that. So,
no, nothing trivial. The one thing I really got out of that was that even though the caravan has left, it's not too late.
yeah, and that is the essential note in that hikmet. You know, I I actually love that about this one because right there, don't say the caravan is gone. There is still a trace on the path. That means you can follow that path even though what you're hoping to be with has departed before you. You can catch up to it. You can find it at the next oasis if you're lucky.
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact that makes me think of the fact that um when a particular teacher or prophet or anyone at any level has gone, that doesn't mean that the path has gone for you.
Absolutely right.
Nope.
That's a very that's a thoughtful reminder. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, and that means you're absorbing some of the meaning of it.
Mm. So RM says, reminder of ego distraction and importance of present moment. No excuses, basically. Yeah, I'd say that's another layer to this, meaning it's not too late. You can go. You can still make this happen if the will is there.
Yep. And so now we come to the last hikmet. And this one is a little bit longer. It starts with, "Awaken, O soul. This is the sleep of neglect. Eternity is calling. This moment is the gate. They say the caravan is gone, but the path remains. The first step is intention. If it comes from God, it is enough. Though many years have passed, the gate of mercy stays open. Even the latecomers have a share in that journey. Those who come burdened and walk with love shall reach, for the path is woven from compassion. This path is the prophet's way. Follow his steps. The truthful and the martyrs walked it before you. In the hands of the guide, the heart is polished. A heart set ablaze with tawhid reaches union. Do not stay on the mountaintop. Turn back to yourself. At dawn, the heart grows still, and God begins to speak. One who abandons the ego is revived through silence. To the one who falls quiet, secrets are unveiled. Cleanse yourself through remembrance. Wash in your own tears. Offer your heart to the guide who steadies your path. The journey of the heart begins in stillness. The gate of the real opens to those who are sincere. What can the world give you? In the end, you must part. Do not boast in gold. You will return to dust. Fame is smoke, and pleasure mixes with poison. One who trusts the world remains in loss. Seek the saints. Their path is light. Even the voiceless stones are chanting in secret. Who gives their heart to them draws near to God. Chains fall off. The soul finds freedom. One who says the caravan has left is still in delay, but the trail is here. The call still resounds. Ahmed says, the one who walks is never late. The loyal servant reaches no matter the hour. Leave the world, but carry the friend in your heart. Do not scorn the world, for God shines there too. The path is open. The path is to open the world to the divine. Sustenance and remembrance both come from him. And so that is the end of that. But there is a special way of understanding this. And to do that, I've got to open this up and come back to here. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again. And we get this. You'll notice that the poem is now laid out along an enneagram. And remember, the enneagram is the universal hieroglyphic that allows you to figure all of this stuff out. Most legominisms can be opened with the proper application of this tool.
Hey, Mushtaq, would it
Yes,
be possible to blow
make it
up?
bigger?
Yes. Yeah,
Probably.
there's a little slidey thing down there, yeah.
Yeah, I know. This is not my first rodeo. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you can all see this. Now, for those of you who are in the forum, I will be putting up this image, both of the Hikmets and the music and all of that kind of stuff. So you don't have to like try and write all of this stuff down. You'll have it. So you notice starting at 1 here, there is a 0 at this point, which is encountering the original poem, encountering the Elahi, and that tells you that there's something there. We look at the poem, at the Hikmet as it goes around the circle, and that gives us our first pass. Our second pass is to look at the moving lines. So we look at 1, awaken, O soul. This is the sleep of neglect. That will take us down to do not stay on the mountaintop. Turn back on yourself. Then we also look down to 7. Seek out the saints. Seek out the wali, actually, is the translation, the friends. Their path is light. And that brings us back to 2. And 2, you look at the moving lines from 4 and 8. 4, you look at the moving lines here, and you let the moving lines inform you about what is being said here. And you do that all the way around, and you contemplate this, and you do it more than once. You're not going to get this immediately. This requires some study. But this is how you begin to decode a lot of this stuff, by seeing where it fits on an enneagram. Then you have the 3, 6, and 9 points, which are the shocks. And if you look at this, the first shock is the path is the prophet's way, following his steps. The second shock is, coming to the understanding that the world can give you nothing. And then the third shock, the reconciling shock, is, it is khalwat taranjuman, solitude in the crowd. Leave the world, but be in the world. So all of these things exist in this. Now we're going to make it go away. So, do you begin to see how a legominism can be opened?
Yes, Chris.
Yes, that's a nice key that we have here.
Yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? Say more about that.
Well, we'll be able to track the I can't even say it exactly. Legominism.
Legominism. Think of Lego on my foot.
Legominism.
Legominism.
You're starting to remind me of Hermione Granger there.
So we can map it with the Enneagram, knowing that those kinds of dynamics are going to be at play no matter what form it is.
And if you have studied our various videos on the Enneagram, you have enough information to do that. Or if you're in the forum, you can always ask us questions. We have some people in the forum who are pretty expert on Enneagram.
Yeah, I really like seeing the grateful, the diligent, and the faithful as the shock points. And I was thinking about listening to it, and then when you brought up just kind of seeing how those play out in those shock points. So now I'm like more grateful for hearing this in the first place, in this moment. So thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Chris.
Ian. You have more thoughts.
Yeah, it's it's a little difficult to comment without having had really had time to read everything that was going on in there. But I found myself somewhat surprised, excuse me, the order of the shock points. The fact that the one at 3 was very positive and the one at 6 seemed to be kind of negative.
Mm-hmm.
It just
Yeah.
seemed
And
weird.
the one at 9 reconciles the two.
Well, that made sense.
Yeah.
It was just the other two that seemed a little weird. But then I've often had difficulties following why one is at 3 and one is at 6.
And just for me, when I think about that triad mentioned, but the grateful, the diligent, and the faithful at point 6, the faithful, I can for myself, I can see the themes of the faithful coming in by the whole like, hey, let go of the world, like that's not where your faith lies, and it's more of that falling into grace kind of dynamic.
Exactly right.
Mushtaq, could you put the enneagram up again?
Yeah, I already closed out the program. Let me find it here real quick. There it is. Let me make it bigger. So there we have it. What do you see?
It's very interesting. It sort of makes me think that 3 is an invitation to the path, and 6 is almost the die before you die thing.
Exactly right. You see how this method can clarify things for you and help you dig deeper into the message?
Yeah, it will be interesting to be able to look at the whole thing and see all of it and actually have the time to absorb all of the different points and see how they interrelate. But that's obviously something we don't have time for.
No, not at the moment, but it will be up in the forum within the next hour or so, depending on how long it takes to download it.
Yes, and it's good to take time privately to meditate on this.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's where the real flavor of the thing is going to come through for you, God willing. And
Mert, what do you think?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm thinking about sleep.
Uh,
I am a little bit tired. I have to look at this again
yeah,
when my mind is fresh because it's not really working very efficiently at this moment.
yeah. And I want everybody to go to the forum, including the puppy, especially the puppy,
Chris had
and listen to this as an Ilahi. Listen to it being sung. Even if you don't understand the words, I'll put up an English translation with it so that you have a sense of what's being said. Uh, but just feel it, and you'll notice that the tune will get stuck in your head. And I do not apologize for that. It's a real earworm. It's done in the Hijaz Maqam, and it's a very catchy one.
Can you remind people what Macam
A
means?
maqam literally means station. It's like a mode, sort of.
Yeah, mode is a good word. People
Yeah,
can tie that to other
yeah,
musical uh
yeah. And I actually had a bunch of stuff on the music used in creating this, but there's just no time to go into it. We may get into that later.
yeah, save it for another time. Save the
Yeah,
juicy stuff beyond all the
what I'll
good stuff you've
do,
already given
this is
us.
what I'll do, is I'll get hold of Adrian and he and I can discuss this and we might do a thing together because he's a master musician. He knows he's forgotten more about music than I'll ever know. Uh, and it would be really good to have somebody like him help us understand the power of the maqam and how it applies to the lyrics and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
That would be wonderful for the morning talk of the third Sunday.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking because it's like really late in Spain right now. So,
Good call. We'll see if we
yeah.
can get something prepared for that day. Thanks, Ian. So we have a question from Chris. I don't want that to slip by the wayside. I think it's important because other people are going to be wondering, what is Tawheed? What is that? So this is like the oneness of divinity, the idea
Yeah,
that you know, the unity of the divinity.
yeah. In Surah Ikhalas, it starts out, Qul hu Allahu Ahad. Say, He, God, is one. Understanding that is Tawheed. In a
Yes.
nutshell, I can hear the Wahhabis shaking their fists at me right now, but I don't really care.
Yeah, some people, especially from the more conservative or literalist point of view, think of this as, oh, it's monotheism. That's what the word means. It's an insistence, it's a tenet of monotheism. But in Sufi poetry and in the way that we conceptualize it, it's more about uh non-duality in a sense, in a sense.
In the Sufi sense,
Hmm.
non-duality with really good dinners.
So does that help, Chris? Great.
Well, that's about all I got for the evening.
Yeah, any last thoughts or questions?
Yeah.
Who have we not had the chance to hear
We
from?
haven't heard from Cherie. She snuck in when we weren't looking.
It's just good to hear from everybody what they're saying in their questions. It's making me realize that the first contact that we have with a Legonism is entertainment. Because initially you're amused or attracted by something and you're not sure what it is. And the layers and layers of questions that we've had today is that unfolding of that understanding. And so initially it is very superficial how we experience it, but it's that persistence and the adherence to going back, you get another little revelation, realization, a recognition of what is being passed on so that you actually get a deeper understanding. And it can be frustrating at the beginning because you don't know what the depth is. You don't know. It's like learning to dog paddle or something. You don't know where the bottom is, and you're kind of frantically splashing around, and it's like, what's going on? What's going on? And then it's getting to the end of this talk and realizing the depth of what we're understanding now to where we were an hour ago is quite lovely. That's what I've got out of it. That initial experience is, it is superficial. So don't worry about that. Stick with it. Stick with it, because that's the hard thing. That's the
Yeah.
hard thing. You're lost. You
Yep.
feel that initial loss, but it is so wonderful when you get a glimmer, and that's a little teaser that keeps you attracted to stay on the path. The end.
Well put, Cherie. Yes, Mert.
I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
Uh, what what do you think is the best Legomanism you have came across, and why is that? If you can think of one.
For me, the best legominism that I've come across, well, there's a couple of them. The Divani Hikmat is definitely one, and I can't even begin to claim to understand it yet because my understanding of the original language is not good enough. But my teacher used to sit and translate the Hikmets in that for us, and that was very meaningful. Another one would be the Yoga Sutras.
Mm.
They aren't just an instructional manual. They are a legominism hiding some secrets that people don't usually see. I'm actually working on an essay on that right now, about one of the greatest secrets in the Yoga Sutras that I don't think anybody has noticed. Either that or my ego has run away with me and everybody knows this but me and they just didn't tell me. That's always possible.
I love that.
Yeah.
What I was wondering is, apart from Beelzebub's tales, are you aware of any really good legomenisms in from European culture as opposed to Middle Eastern or Asian culture?
Sorry, I missed that question. What was that?
Legominisms from European culture. Beowulf. Beowulf, definitely.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, but preferably in the original. There's a guy who does performances. He'll literally sit with his Saxon harp and sing Beowulf in the original Old English, and it's an amazing experience.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
That brings another one to mind. The song, not the, I mean, sure, why not the Simon and Garfunkel version? But the song, Scarborough Fair.
yeah, Scarborough Fair is definitely a legomenism. Chris suggests King Arthur, and in the oldest versions of it, could very well be. But Scarborough Fair for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few songs like that, folk songs that will contain legominisms.
Are you hearing?
Scarborough Fair is an instruction on how to do magic, for those of you who don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What about Tamlin? You familiar with that?
Tamlin I think that Tamlin, in its oldest version, has some very interesting things in it. Tamlin is the story of a woman who encounters a fairy knight in his castle, and they find out that he is actually a prisoner of the Queen of the Fairies, and they're going to barter him off to hell in a particular night, and she saves him. And um, I don't want to tell you any more of the song. Fairport Convention did a great version of that song.
Yes, indeed. I'll share that in the forum.
Yes, please.
Definitely.
Yeah, and That's a song you say, Tamlin, and I immediately hear the song in my mind.
Yeah,
Violin parts and all. Yeah.
it's an easy earworm.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh is without a doubt a Legominism. And that sort of counts as Western culture.
Kyle suggests a couple. All of those nursery rhymes already mentioned and fairy tales. Someone I know is doing like a whole workshop on just the story of Briar Rose and unpacking all of the nuances of that. Um,
I don't know
Kyle,
about the Lord of the Rings, but it's such a good story.
I mean, uh, yeah, it's something to think about. But it's interesting that it's hard to say yet, in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it also comes back to that question about can a legominism be created unconsciously?
Mhm.
Because Tolkien really took. Now, I must admit, my knowledge of the history of how Tolkien got there is kind of scanty, but my understanding is that he took a lot of things from historical myths and legends and kind of put them all together in some way in order to create the Lord of the Rings world.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and it definitely has the hit of the mythic in it.
yeah.
Vibe, as it were.
And it will capture the minds of certain individuals.
Like Peter Jackson
Like Peter Jackson, like me.
Yep.
and Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
Yes.
I read The Lord of the Rings. The only reason I read it is because I was really interested in this girl in high school who was really into it. And so I figured I had best do my homework. And I read through the entirety from The Hobbit to The Return of the King. And then I just flipped everything over and started again because I was completely captured.
You were actually into it that
I
time.
was actually into it. And I just actually didn't care that much about the girl after that. But I don't think that very many books have had that kind of effect on me. The other one, which is another possible Legominism, is Dune, the original one, maybe the original series, but definitely the original Dune.
Maybe, maybe. I'm struggling to think of the ones that have shown up powerfully in my life. I mean, I guess maybe one for me would be the I was a hidden treasure and I wanted to be known hadith. I
Yeah.
mean, that just like didn't have to blow my mind, but it did. And it taught me a lot just from being hit by it in a certain way. And it was life-changing. And I learned so much just through the experience of it before I knew anything really about Sufism or uh, even that much about Islam or anything like that. It just hit me like a truck.
What was that again?
It's a
A hadith, the saying of the Prophet Muhammad, and it's a hadith Qudsi, which means one that was inspired directly through the divine current.
yeah, so it's supposed to be God talking.
Yeah.
That's the idea of it. It's not meant to be taken literally, but there is that sense that it's not Muhammad talking about himself.
No, it's definitely God talking about God.
Yes.
And the hadith is, I was a hidden treasure and I loved to be known. So I created the universe that I might be known.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's one you think
It
about
is
and you
in,
go,
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely interesting.
yeah. And in the Arabic, it's poetic.
Yeah. Yep. I just happened to be receptive to it in that moment, and
And the rest is history.
yeah. Yep.
Just out of curiosity, how did you come across it originally, Nora?
I was doing a project on, I forget exactly. I mean, this was almost 20 years ago at this point, so the details are a little fuzzy. But I was working on a project about religious pluralism, more as like an intellectual exercise. I had sympathy for that. I had an ethics class I was taking in college, and my final project was going to be about religious pluralism. And so I started doing all the research about various traditions that had this kind of pluralistic, inclusive, even dare we say perennialist perspective on spirituality. And I learned about like the, what is it, like the something something of universal Sufism, and the Baha'i tradition came up at one point, and like various forms of Hinduism, all of this stuff. And then one day I just happened to come across material about Sufism, traditional Sufism specifically. And so I was reading some kind of website essay about Sufism, and this hadith happened to be one of the taglines or something near the top of the page. And I maybe not at the top of the page, but I was reading the essay and something was just opening me up. It was almost like something had been jiggled just right, as it were, that by the time I read that hadith, I was a hidden treasure and I longed to be known, so I created creation in order to be known. Um, I just was I can't even describe to you, but it was definitely a kind of peak experience.
Yeah, I've been thinking a fair bit recently about how certain things come along when you're ready.
Mhm.
And this sounds exactly like one of those. You were ready, it came along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep, snuck up on you, gave you a big old sloppy lick on the ear,
Yeah.
and you'll never forget it.
I will never forget it. And I think I've described that in other conversations before, but not in this particular context, or how it came about. So, yeah, that's what happened. Thank you for asking, Ian.
Yeah, so this is a very basic introduction to the science of Legominisms, which have been used in Sufism for 1,000 years or more, and have been found throughout the world in various times and places. And if you learn, you can connect to this knowledge. It's there and it's available to you. Um, and it might be tricky to get to it because sometimes it's not in English. And for a country that is monolinguistic, like most Americans are, it's hard. Uh,
Monolingual. Yeah.
yeah.
Blurg. Hmm.
Oh, what's his name? Raymond Lull.
Ah,
Raymond Lull has done some work that is definitely legoministic in nature. And he's a European, didn't speak English, spoke a dialect of Spanish.
One of the troubadours?
Um, Not necessarily a troubadour, but he had an interesting life. He was a wastrel and a scallywag and a ne'er-do-well in his younger years. And then
Always the
he,
best people.
yeah,
all
and
the
then he
best
had
people, yes.
then he had a moment of enlightenment, and it completely changed his life. Um, he spent a lot of time going from Spain to Morocco and Algeria and the Maghreb to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, convert the heathens. But it's obviously that he was more studying with them than converting them. And he wrote some very important things. Um,
Yeah, I've certainly heard of him, but I don't actually know any of his material directly.
yeah, he's one of the people who got some sort of enneagram knowledge, but it not in the direct line for sure. But yeah, look him up. He's interesting. All right. So, um, first, if you made it this far, I want to thank you all for doing that. And to ask you again, if you would do us the incredibly kind favor of hitting that like button so that we can fight against the evil of the algorithm. And if you found this interesting or you have some questions, leave a comment and we'll do our best to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say us, I mean all of us here.
So thank you very much for being here, everyone, and for learning together with us, exploring, and certainly more to come. And it'll be cool to have that exploration perhaps later in the month on the music thing, right?
Yeah, I'll see what Adrian feels like doing and we'll take it from there.
Yep. But in the meanwhile, we will be here next week, of course, as always.
God willing.
That's true. God willing. All right. So we can wave to each other, wave to everyone watching on the replay. Thank you, everyone. Take good care. See you again soon, God willing. Bye.